r/AskReddit. CP3TN3M0 says, who is the worst person you have ever known, and why? Sweet Cosmic Pope says, I don't know any killers or rapists or anything like that, but let me tell you about my dad's ex-wife. When I was in college and working for a beer distributor, my dad started dating this woman. She was actually the mom of one of my former classmates. She did not live with us, but she was staying at our house often. Sometimes even when my dad wasn't there, like if he was working late or out hunting or something. Now, bear in mind I was a 21-year-old man at this point. She decided that lights out in the house for everybody would be 9 p.m. There would be no overpass guests, and girls were not allowed. My dad was so whipped, he not only capitulated to these demands, he began causing a fuss with me when I did not. So I got my own apartment. I didn't want to upset him, so I told him the evening before I moved out that I was moving out the next day. No joke, the next morning her daughter was there with a truck full of stuff and my dad's girlfriend was rushing me out of the house so she could move her daughter into my room. A couple months go by and my dad decides he's going to marry this girl, so they go to the courthouse and get it done real quick. She's gotten worse by this point in bossing him around. My dad has to sneakily visit with me, or have me, and my future wife over because she's convinced that my dad will have an affair with her, so doesn't want him around her. My understanding is she also didn't want him around any of his female friends. They were married for about a year when they rode his motorcycle out to the biker bar they frequented, and she got so sauced he told her to get a DD or a cab to get her home because he didn't want her falling off of his bike. He rode the bike home, and he was awakened by her son and a bunch of his high school buddies yanking him out of his bed and beating on him for leaving her at the bar. He grabbed his pistol and told them to get out, and they did. Then his wife called the police. My dad was arrested for menacing with a deadly weapon and had his firearms confiscated by the police. This mess was still ongoing at the time of his death about 2.5 years later, and we spent about another 6 months fighting with the police department to give his firearms back after the charges were dropped following his death. My dad was talking to a lawyer about filing for a divorce on the exact day that he was served with divorce papers with a protective order and was barred from entering his own house that was across the street from my grandpa's house. He was allowed to get clothes and stuff with a police escort. The police escort? Her new boyfriend, the cop that arrested my dad. My dad was able to get the protective order overturned and was able to stay at my grandpa's house for the duration of the divorce. She tried to hide assets like the big screen TV and exercise equipment and stuff by gifting them to her brother. When it was discovered, her case was entirely frick edition. She had been trying to get everything by saying my dad was abusive. He was not. She ended up walking away from the divorce with only the car that my dad financed with her. About 6 months after that she traded it in, and my dad was stoked it was no longer part of his credit. My dad got the house, all of the stuff in the house, the boat, the motorcycles, his truck. Everything. My gramps and I had to go to her brother's house and pick up all of the items that she had put in his house. My dad was working and couldn't go and didn't want to start trouble anyway. The story doesn't end there, though. A couple years after the divorce my dad died unexpectedly in a motorcycle crash. My sister and I were listed as the beneficiaries on his will, and his life insurance, his ex-wife, was never listed in any of these documents. He let me know where they were while he was still alive because she was throwing a fit about that. I was on top of everything because I needed the distraction, so I was contacting insurance and funeral parlors and all of that stuff. Turns out the funeral parlor will make the insurance claims on your behalf and then just cut you a check for the difference after the fact, so I'll let them handle that part. When it came time to true up following my dad's funeral, they asked about someone with his ex-wife's name. She had apparently called the life insurance company and tried to file a claim against his life insurance, and they told them about Spiritual Company 5941 says, a true succubus. Zigam says, no offense but your dad was extremely stupid. Altruistic Candle 254 says, new supermarket manager. She comes in wearing her home clothes, we have no clue who she is, and she just walks over and yells at my 2 apprentices. I tell her to stop being rude, she says she's the new manager. I said it's still no way to treat staff, I get written up for it on her first day. She forced a worker to change shifts because they needed him to work on Mondays and it's his problem that he chose to have kids. She had a poster on her door saying not my monkey, not my circus. She had the second in charge sign off on a heap of dodgy things and then left her high and dry. She was asked to quit and did. 6 staff quit because of her during her 5 months there and another 16 transferred to nearby stores. She used the staff leaving as getting rid of dead weight in her resume and got the job as area manager. Worst human I've met, and usually I can find the good in people. My dick in a box says, or that reminds me of the new manager at a supermarket I worked at in high school and college. I was the most tenured bagger, always showed up early, worked hard, and never called in sick. I also did checking, even though no one trained me, and ran the customer service booth. I was out getting carts and saw a friend I hadn't seen in a few years, so I stopped and talked to him for about 2 minimums. As I come in, the manager comes up to me and says, I clocked you out for your break since you were out there talking. Within the first month of him being there, something like 30 people quit. I can't say it was all bad. I did get a raise of $0.05 per hour. Anyway, the manager was fired within 3 months. Friculary. r/AskReddit. Murky Meal 8799 says, what's your biggest fear? Teddy Westside 4 says, cancer because I know I couldn't beat it if I had to again. Status Quality 4905 says, getting my face torn off by a chimp. July Asian Peach says, losing my cat. I can't imagine. Old. 5359 says, being unsuccessful person. You don't know what your future holds or where you might end up in your life. Agitated Tackle 8427 says, fear of being left out. Imagine your friends or someone you know leaving you without you knowing what's the reason behind them leaving. Yasifasla 7 says, coming out of the closet to my family. They are super against being gay as we are from a country where being gay will get you into some serious trouble and is against their religion. Shamales Fox says, life. Nick Wakesai says, drowning. The thought of drifting lower and lower as there's absolutely nothing to stop the horrible death coming is just no. Hamster Paki says, dying before my kids are financially self-sufficient. Okay Honeydew 1946 says, nuclear explosion killing the entire planet. Effective Ice 576 says, fear of death. Evergone Wild says, my biggest fear is that one day I'll pour cereal into my bowl and realize there's no milk left, forcing me to eat dry cereal like some kind of barbarian. Sensitive Area 8960 says, spiders and being seed. Helpful Substance 388 says, girlfriend is pregnant. Very worried about how her mental health will be, and I'm worried about it now. She seems fine, I just care about her a lot. But my biggest fear is losing her in general, and the pregnancy. I just see it a lot online, and it scares me, but she doesn't know this. Agent Aspert says, having a coherent, extended awareness that I'm about to die, and then dying horribly and painfully, whether it's murder or disease. Plasmacud 246 says, having a fear. Thultomaterapide says, the future. Mr. E. Chunk says. Not dying by snoo. You're on Lenora says. Loud noise. Dulcini Pink 69 says. Dying with suffering. Fatboy G75 says. Relapsing on alcohol again. I won't survive next time. Dallas Third says. Cancer. Thorsagomingai says. Dinosaurs. Some of them are very big. Retroatahud says. Believing in God, and when I die I hear that he never knew me because I never had true faith / misinterpreted the entire Bible and I actually had to work for my salvation / didn't have any faith etc. I'm not leaving the faith, but I'm never feel assured of my salvation, it's always bothering me. Fat Roast Beef 313 says. Deformation and the loss of limbs and sight. Elmer 6560 says. One word for no. Gilda 12 says. The rise of the alt-right. Grathorius says. I heard this one in a song once, and it stuck with me, that other people would see me as I see them. Not necessarily true 100% of the time, but there are some occasions when it is true. Pixel Raven says. To die alone, that. There is no one by my side. Childishsami says. Running out of coffee. Seriously. Boiling Najus says. Failure, probably. Not amounting to anything in life. Having some unknown job, not being well liked, meaning nothing. I debated on joining the military because I was so desperate to do something impactful, to succeed in a way. Also the darkened spiders, but those are kinda irrational. Murky Confection 6487 says. Losing a close person. And mice, they scare me. Xerox 0987 says. Probably that the whole world will end in World War III and everyone will die. Oh well. Sexist Maltron says. Not being loved. Me and my BF broke up a few days ago. Healthy relationship but different goals. I feel so extremely alone. I'm handling this quite poorly. He was my soulmate, but I couldn't promise him biological children. That's all for this video, thank you for watching, please subscribe.